So, just looking at social media and the internet, there are a lot of white women waking up to the fact today that they benefited the most from DEI programs. DEI programs date as far back as the 60s in the historic civil rights movement, when there were a lot of societal movements taking place and there were a lot of legal changes occurring in the workplace. Like, for example, there was the introduction of the Equal Employment Law or laws, and there was an introduction of affirmative action policies and laws. So employers felt that they needed to train their staff and their leaders on these laws. And in doing that, that's how, discussing things like diversity, equity, inclusion uh, uh, was created. But again, these trainings were aimed at helping employees adjust to the integration of the workplace, because there were whole companies, and there's some today, because I know there are whole law firms where there are barely any women or people that look like me, in the workplace. So imagine in the 60s, there were, corporate jobs and corporate workplaces that did not have people who are quote unquote minorities in America, right? But these programs, again, at their inception, focus mainly on race, has been expanded to include gender, sexual orientation, country of origin, religion, and other identities. Um, in the beginning, I guess the trainings were met with a lot of resistance, just like, even today. I want to say, like in 2020, um, I'm not going to name the place I once worked, but in 2020, where I used to work, when we began to talk about DEI after the death of George Floyd, and we began to talk about race in America, there were a lot of people that just wanted to get back to work, right? They didn't want to take time away from work to have these deep and meaningful discussions. But in the beginning, I would say maybe the approach was more confrontational. It made some people, especially, men in the workplace, especially white men in the workplace, feel as if they were being blamed for acts they did not commit. I get that. But to people who are in historically excluded groups or marginalized groups, the discussion of DEI was a welcoming effort so that people could understand their lived experiences and what they brought to the workplace. But just like now, back then, there were a lot of groups that, just did not want to have these conversations in the workplace. So go to Facebook and let me know whether or not you feel as if DEI did more harm or more good, and whether or not you specifically feel as if you've benefited from DEI. And I'm not gonna lie, I feel like, I've benefited from DEI in the workplace. I do know that I soared to leadership at my previous firm. I want to say it was because of my talent, because I am talented, right? I have a law degree. Hey, and I had to work for that. They don't just give out law degrees, and you don't just pass a test, to become a lawyer. You have to work for that, right? But I do know that I feel like my past boss was intentional about giving opportunities to a diverse group of people. But I still had to submit my resume. I still had to be interviewed. I still had to talk about why I was the most qualified candidate for the job. And then I still had to go through, like I say, a panel of people who grilled me, right? On my experiences and whether or not I was competent. So, but this attack against DEI has been well executed in this country. I think it's been a well executed attack because, hey, the 47th president is now keeping with his campaign promises to undo what he and those who are ultra conservative or those who consider themselves to be MAGA Americans, to undo what they consider to be the woke agenda.